welcome to my channel, Bow and Arrow Tarot. Today we're going to get right into the March love outlook for Gemini. Alright, Geminis, you're up. I'm going to work on your love outlook for March. See what's going on for you. Of course, this is only one reading for Gemini, so please just take it as it comes. If it doesn't apply to you, just let it go. This reading is not for you. All right, Gemini, let's cut your deck and pull out your cards. All right, we have at the center, 9 of Pentacles, covered by the 5 of Swords, 4 of Swords. Oops, let's move this down. There we go. 7 of Cups, Queen of Swords, High Priestess, Temperance energy, and the Devil. Wow. 5 of Wands and the Fool is how you round out your month. All right. So, bottom of the deck, we have 7 of Wands, which is the card for valor and determination. Right. All right, Gemini. Well, it's quite interesting because this month seems to be, this outlook seems to be for a Gemini who's single, right? Who's not necessarily connected to anyone. And let's get right into it and tell you why. First of all, you have 9 of Pentacles covered by that 5 of Swords. So far, there's been a lot of 5s showing up for the love readings, but in any case, 9 of Pentacles is the card for someone who's extremely ambitious and career-minded, Gemini. Somebody who's all about their own personal future, their job or their business. Right? This is someone who really spends a lot of time ensuring that they take care of themselves, take care of their body. They make sure that their environment is, you know, suited to their needs. This can also indicate someone who's beginning to experience quite a lot of success and abundance coming in as a result of a lot of hard work they've put in. Yet and still, you do have a 5 of Swords covering you. Now, this could also be for a Gemini who is with someone, in a love connection with someone, but right now your future, or your career rather, your business, your career is really your focus, and you may indeed be having a lot of arguments, right? You may indeed be having a lot of strife with someone as a result of it, because 4 of Swords can indicate a power struggle with someone where you're constantly arguing back and forth. You're constantly in a battle with this person, but the one thing is that they don't really play fairly. So it could be that you're dealing with somebody who's constantly hitting below the belt. They may be upset because you are indeed very successful. They may be feeling jealous. They may be feeling like, you know, envious. Even though you're in a relationship with them, they could be feeling quite envious because there's definitely a power struggle you're having with someone here. And if we're looking at this as a love outlook, certainly this is going to be the person in your life that maybe you have a love connection with, or you're maybe even in a relationship with, but this constant bickering and arguing with this person is really making you want to sort of throw your hands up in defeat and say, you know what, you win. Right? In a lot of ways, this is what that is feeling like, right? 4 of Swords and 7 of Cups. So this is your conscious and unconscious cards. And the 4 of Swords is really what you're busy with. Right now, you're thinking very strategically. And some of these same cards came up for Aquarius just a minute ago. 4 of Swords is about really thinking your next move out, right? Thinking strategically about your next move. It could very well be that somebody in your life is really sort of, you know, their ways, or the way that you're having to struggle with them is really undermining your career. And you're starting to think in March about how you can actually, you know, move forward. What's your next steps to moving forward? Because you don't want your career to be impacted by all of the strife and trouble that you're having perhaps in this relationship. In the back of your mind, you have a 7 of Cups, and that's a feeling of still wanting things maybe to work out, okay? So it could be that for some of you, you're not really facing the facts that this relationship or this union, this connection is not suited for you. You may be trying to be all things to all people. It could be that you're trying to be a career person and at the same time, be the mate or be the partner that this person wants, but it's, you're being pulled in a lot of different ways, which is another reason why I think you're trying to be more, you're trying to, you feel like there's a strategy here, like there's a plan here, but I think a lot of why you may continue to have this strife is because in the back of your mind, you're trying to push something or push a relationship that really doesn't have what it takes to survive. Seven of Cups can also be delusional thinking. It can be wishful thinking, wishing things are different than they really are. It could be having unrealistic expectations as well, especially in a relationship. And it could be like, this is what you're busy with. You may be having an unrealistic expectation about the person you're with, that they're going to accept the level of, success that you have. Nine of Pentacles is a very powerful, energy to deal with, right? This is someone who, if you are resonating with Nine of Pentacles and you are in a relationship with somebody who is not equally as ambitious and has their own thing going on, you can be quite intimidating. A Nine of Pentacles person can be very intimidating just by the sheer success that they're bringing in. Their ability to show skill and mastery. Nine of Pentacles individuals have a high degree of mastery in whatever career or field they're in. And so all of these things make you shine very brightly, but it seems to be a source of arguing, or it seems to be a source of contention in your relationship. This is great energy. Look at this. You come into the month with Queen of Swords, you round off with a High Priestess. Well, the Queen of Swords energy is like, look, I'm not going to keep playing a role. I'm not going to keep, pretending things are great when they're not. It could be that the Seven of Cups in the back of your mind, you may in March be waking up to the fact that you have been a little bit unrealistic about this relationship, right? Or that you have been sort of not facing up to the true nature or the true, to the situation the way it really is, right? Hoping things get better. But you may be realizing all of this about yourself because with the Queen of Swords, that is a real strong energy of saying, hey, you know what? I don't care what anybody else thinks of me. I have to be true to who I am. I have to be true to my identity, and I can't keep playing a role or wearing a mask to make anybody else happy. The other thing with the Queen of Swords is not only does she have a deep sense of identity and honesty about who she is, she requires it from other people, right? And it could very well be that you've had enough of dealing with somebody who keeps blaming you, or someone who keeps sort of also playing a role, right? Also pretending to be something that they're not. Now, I'm not saying that you were ever pretending to be something that you're not, but what I am saying is that with that Queen of Swords energy, not only, have you worked really hard to be more honest and true to yourself, but you just don't tolerate anybody else not putting that same work in on themselves. By the end of the month, you round out with a High Priestess, and this is a real feeling of you kind of sort of saying to yourself, you know what, I knew this is how this was going to go. I think for a lot of you, by the end of the month, the situation with this connection is going to reaffirm everything that you had been feeling before. Because, of course, the High Priestess talks about having a high degree of sort of intuition and self-confidence, and it could be that for a long time you kind of saw this coming, and now that it is working out exactly the way you saw it coming, by the end of the month, this is your reaffirmation that you were probably right all along. And that will give you a sense of self-confidence, right? Because whenever we follow our intuitive voice, we realize that we were right, our self-confidence soars. Now, your attitude towards all of this month, you have Temperance energy, you're met with the Devil. So your attitude is really to remain sort of steadfast, to remain sort of calm and not reactionary. Again, Five of Swords is a number for defeat, but it's a defeat that we acquiesce, right? So it's the kind of defeat where we say, you know what, you win. You know, I'm not going to battle with you anymore. If I carry on arguing with you, I'm just going to stay in this pit with you, and I don't want to be here, and I don't want to be like you. So you have your hollow victory, and I'm going to move on. And that requires a lot of fortitude and a lot of temperance. And I think this is your attitude this month. You're just not going to react. You have your eyes on a prize, which is your career. And I think this ambitious side of yourself, Gemini, you're just not going to let it go. You're met with the devil. Now, this is a real feeling of, again, I'm going to say this individual may indeed be trying to push your buttons. It could be that this is a really codependent relationship that up until now, you guys have constantly sort of battled with each other, pushed each other's buttons, etc., etc. A lot of that requires you to be reactionary, just the way they're reactionary. But this month, you're not being reactionary. You know, you're being tempered. And temperance, and like I said, temperance is the ability to not let other people's energy or outside influences kind of get you off of your focus or get you to act in a way that you didn't mean to. This is ultimate control of yourself regardless of what is going on around you. And so although you have this devil energy coming into you that's kind of like trying to bait you, trying to tempt you, again, it's an energy of codependency perhaps. It could be that your person is expecting, you know, the person you're dealing with, they probably have a real MO. Right? They probably have a whole set of behaviors that you're very used to. Because oftentimes toxic people are extremely predictable. Right? Toxic people are extremely predictable because they resonate with a lot of this kind of devil energy, you know, and that's predictable. Addiction behavior is predictable. Right? And addiction behavior, being a slave to your passion, being a slave to instant gratification, that's all kind of like, a lot of that is where toxic behavior comes from. So when somebody is toxic, you can count on them to act a certain way, right? Like if you know somebody is a jealous, insecure person, who hasn't really worked on those issues, trust me, they're going to be predictably jealous and insecure, and they're going to behave in that kind of way, right? Changing that behavior would be healing and changing themselves, and a lot of people don't do that overnight, right? And so it's interesting that this person is definitely coming with some very sort of toxic energy, some very codependent energy. And instead of reacting the way you have been, not only are you anticipating their behavior, but you're stronger this time around, right? Again, it's this feeling of saying, you know what, I give up. I'm just not going to argue with you anymore. And once you make that decision, that is kind of like you're kind of like sticking a wedge in that codependent cycle. It's the moment that you decide not to react to that energy, that cycle is broken. Right? And the moment you say, you know what, rather than arguing with you, which is what you normally get me to do, I'm not going to bother arguing with you. I'm going to let you have your victory. That is the type of behavior or the type of decision-making process that can stop a codependent cycle in its tracks because you're not giving energy into it anymore. It really is as easy as that. And a lot of times I do readings for people where I get people who comment and they say, well, how can I get out of this? How can I just make it stop? Well, you just make it stop. You just stop. It's, searching for some sort of answer outside of yourself or some sort of secret is not the way. It's really down to whether or not can you stop engaging in this codependent behavior, right? This sort of toxic behavior. And you do that this month, right? With this temperance energy. Again, this feels like a reading for somebody who is leaving a difficult situation to go after their own dreams, to go after their vision and their goals, to stay true to who they are, right? And so far, this is how it's been, I think, for the air signs in March. We're all sort of getting out of difficult situations to follow our passion and our heart. Now, your hopes and dreams and your fear, this is position for hopes and dreams and fears, is really a lot of bickering and arguing. And so in a lot of ways, I think you may be wanting to get this finally out in the open, right? But in a lot of ways, you fear having to continue to battle. And not so much fear, like you're afraid of it, but it's not what you want, right? You don't want to have to continue to have this power struggle. Again, this is another 5, right? So this power struggle, and here we have a power struggle of like being very competitive, right? So it's almost as if like before, when you were involved with this person, it was all about just arguing back and forth. They always wanted to be sort of the winner. Here, now we have a feeling of competitiveness. And I'm not really surprised, because if you are leaving this person or you're giving up this constant battle with this person, they may find a different way to battle with you. And now this time, instead of engaging you directly, they could just be in competition with you now, right? If I don't know if you have ever been through that, but sometimes when you're in a relationship with somebody where there's one toxic energy, when you leave, they only just exhibit a different toxic energy. Right. When they realize that you're no longer going to be giving them energy, now they change their tune, and now their toxicity is about constantly competing with you instead, right? Trying to prove that they're the better person. And you really don't want to have this arguing and bickering, right? It could be that for some of you, you may have other connections with this person. There may be children involved, and so you fear the inevitable arguing that's going to come as a result of you perhaps leaving the situation. I do feel like, this is a movement, like this is a leaving, this is a breaking down of this relationship, right? But in a lot of ways, Gemini, in March, you may not actually leave in March. It may not be until April that you actually decide to leave out of this situation. But in March, you're certainly facing up to a lot of the behaviors and attitudes that have been sort of impacting this relationship. You're waking up to the way you've been behaving, or the way they've been behaving, or the way the interaction has been going that has made this a toxic connection. And this awareness and waking up to all of this is definitely what you're focused with in March. And you're thinking, strategizing your next move, so that by April, some of you may indeed have set the plans in motion to finally get out of this union, to actually leave this union. Fool energy is how it rounds off. And again, it does feel to me like you guys are coming out of this and moving on with your life, moving on with a different path in your life. That is a path that you're going to be walking alone. The Fool is not the Hermit, but the Fool oftentimes does indicate a shift in our lives to another stage or another path or another chapter in our lives. And oftentimes this shift is a solitary one. It's one that you're making for you, for yourself, for your life. Doesn't necessarily involve bringing anyone with you. And it feels very much like a leaving situation, right? 7 of Wands over there at the bottom of the deck here. We're talking about valor and just being very creative, right? So it can feel like a little bit like you against the world now that you've made your decision. But I don't think you would ever go back, because, the arguing was too much. The constant arguing. And that's really what is at the heart of why this relationship isn't working out, is this 5 of Swords. This constant battle that somebody is having with you. And they don't they don't play fairly in this battle. It's like this is the type of relationship where you come home and it's like, no matter what you say, it's wrong, right? No matter how you interact or communicate, they're going to try to find a way to be right. They're going to try to find a way to win that argument, or they're going to try to find a way to make themselves look like they're right and you're wrong, Very, very toxic. And they'll, this is the 5 of Swords individual will absolutely hit below the belt. Nothing's off limits. They don't stick to the rules. There's rules in fighting. When you're with a lover, there's rules. You don't hit below the belt. You don't talk about their mama. You know what I mean? There's certain rules that you have when you're arguing with somebody, whether you're in love with them, married to them, or whatever. And it's like this person never sticks with the rules, and you've just had enough of it. All right, let's pull out your clarity cards, and then we're going to call this your reading, Gemini. Show me clarity. Clarity on Gemini for love in March. Show me. Four of Swords. There you go. Four of Swords just came out on Four of Swords. So there's your reaffirmation. Another four. The Emperor. The Magician. And the Ace of Swords. So clarity and understanding coming in with the High Priestess. So yes, March is a real month where you are strategizing. At the bottom of the deck, there's your Queen of Swords coming out again. So what do we know about that? We know that of all things that we are, the two cards that have been reaffirmed are the Queen of Swords and the Four of Swords. So it's absolutely about coming out of familiar roles, being yourself. You may have certainly been playing a role in this relationship. You may have been playing the role of the dutiful wife when in fact you have this whole career and this whole ambition in your life, and this person you have with may not have been accepting of that. My readings aren't gender specific, so again, male, female, doesn't matter, but it is this, to a certain degree it does feel like that. It could be that, you know. Or even if you're a man, it could be that feeling of having to constantly sort of live up to the family man ideal or the boyfriend or husband ideal, when really right now you're all about your career, and it's like they're constantly bickering and arguing with you, and you just can't, you know, you can't be there for them in that way. You know, you can't continue to play that role. You can only be true to yourself, and this is why we have the Queen of Swords reaffirmed. Four of Swords comes out over Four of Swords to confirm that, yeah, you're kind of like, you know what? I'm calling a truce. I don't want to argue anymore. I just want to find the best way forward for me and for this, right? And for this connection. And it feels to me very much like a best way forward in this type of connection is to leave, you know. My regulars know I am not a big fan of people staying in toxic relationships and trying to force a solution. Certainly when you're dealing with somebody where, you know, you're trying to fix a relationship and you're trying to fix them. I always say this, you know, decide if you want to be somebody's therapist or somebody's lover. I have no desire to be somebody's therapist. Of course, if you're in love with somebody, you know, you guys are in love with each other, you help each other through certain problems. Of course, you have certain, you know, baggage or insecurities that you bring to a relationship, and ideally you help each other with those. But what I'm talking about is when you're stone cold trying to be somebody's therapist. You know, the amount of times I hear about people putting up with horrible relationships and horrible behavior, and the first, you know, sort of excuse that comes out of their mouth is all of the excuses that they're making for this partner. Oh, they were raised without love. They were never taught how to love. They were, you know, it's like, okay, so you're dealing with somebody who was never taught how to love? You know, who's never taught how to engage with another human being in a healthy way. They never took it upon themselves to learn these skills. So now you're going to take it upon yourself to somehow teach them and mold them and form them into this perfect mate, and then you're going to have this perfect relationship. And that's just so unrealistic. That just doesn't, you know, that doesn't work. And usually what happens in that situation is if you do help somebody fix themselves, they very quickly will then leave you, the therapist, because they don't have a love connection with you like that. They now have a therapist-patient relationship with you. And once they're fixed, or once they've gotten their shit together, oftentimes they're going to leave this connection and they're going to go out and find a lover, someone that they can have a love connection with, not someone that they constantly look at as their therapist or their mother or their father. You know, nobody wants to be involved like that. And so it's interesting that this will come out like that. With that Emperor energy coming out, this is also, again, reestablishing vision and order, bringing order to chaos and realizing that, you know what, this was very unrealistic. Here we have another four. And the major arcana for the Emperor is all about sort of stability, power, you know, realistic sort of goals, a vision for your future, and realizing that perhaps you did have an unrealistic idea about this relationship. It's like you absolutely want to get your authority back. You want to sit back in your power. You want to come back to sort of being stable and establishing stability in your life. and coming out of this sort of fairy tale that you've been in that hasn't been realistic at all. The Magician comes out to clarify the Queen of Swords, just to prove to you that as long as you are being true to yourself, you are working to your highest talents, your highest capabilities. You have everything that you need as long as you're true to yourself, because the Magician has all of the talent and abilities that he needs to manifest anything he wants in his life, as long as he recognizes who he is. He has to know he's the magician to be able to behave like one. And the Ace of Swords comes in over the High Priestess because, like I said earlier, when our intuitional voice is reaffirmed by experience or events that come in to prove that we were right, Ace of Swords comes in also in a sense that self-confidence and clarity comes in, understanding comes in. You see everything clearly now. You know, hindsight is 20/20, and a lot of times proof of your intuitional voice being right is in that realm. You know, you don't get that proof until later, until the event has passed or some other event has come in to prove that you were right. And so that you know, reaffirmation that you were correct, right, brings with it clarity for the future. It brings with it confidence for the future, and an understanding that, you know, you can trust your intuitional voice. So it brings even more trust in your intuition, which only builds your intuition more. All right, my lovely Geminis, I'm going to leave it. This is your March love outlook. I do hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you some clarity into whatever situation you're going through. If you did, go ahead, please like, subscribe, and share. Continue to help me grow my channel. You can check out your weekly readings or your weekly love outlooks. They're all linked in the description. But for right now, Gemini, have a wonderful, wonderful March, and I'll see you in the following month for your love outlook. Bye-bye now.